Thank you, Rasina uh, and Miss, who are my former colleagues. I'm very happy to be in this session to be among you. And I thank students. I hope there's students of the Department of English of Sudan, that is Government College Kuttanallur, Thrissur. I thank you for giving this grand introduction. So let me start with my topic. Yes, I expect that I hope all of you are eagerly waiting for this topic, which is Michel Foucault and postmodernism. Both are what you can say has almost has become cliche terms, maybe used more than that is necessary in our academics. But how far we are that is aware of, or how far we are familiar with Foucault's concepts. Yes. Yes. Thank you for informing this. I shall be louder. Let me check my mic audibility. Yes.
Shamla, if you
Ah,
have a earphone, like headphones, you can use that. I think it
uh,
would be more clear then.
okay, sure. Just 1 minute. Okay. Let me start with. Is it audible now?
Yes, yes, thank you.
Okay. Michel Foucault may not be a fascinating topic to many of you. Yes, thank you. That is, it's already like a household term, I would say, that among at least literature students. Maybe every day in your class, you might be what you have the experience of being mentioned. That is, have heard this name at least in one of your classes in a day, because that itself shows the influence that Foucault has even today in our academic world. And then and Michel Foucault and postmodernism. We generally we regard Foucault as a postmodernist thinker. Yeah, so again, there may be an apprehension, you may wonder why is there anything to speak about Foucault in relation to postmodernism, because already he is an accepted postmodernist thinker. Yes, so this is what we are introduced to, but this was not the case when Foucault was. Uh, uh, or This was not the case in his that is the period contemporary to Foucault. Or Foucault was not, or Foucault himself has not regarded, he never regarded himself as a postmodernist, not even a structuralist. Yes, but there is still we find there are some that is these debates regarding Foucault being a structuralist or an post-structuralist or even postmodernist. The point of my presentation is that, or why I chose this topic, though they are so familiar with you or among you, is that Michel Foucault, though we regard him as a postmodernist thinker, he himself has denounced the this notion that he is a postmodernist. He couldn't. He in many of his interviews he claimed that he could not. There is nothing common, or there is little similarity or common with the other postmodernists, like we have that is Derrida, or that is the other established postmodernist thinkers. And with structuralists too, he has a little patience with them too, because when he was writing, that is from we find that it is after the Second World War. We find that he's born in that is 1926. Yes, so his as a student, he came into or he entered into the institution Ecole, which is in France. It is the most prestigious institution where people like luminaries like Sartre, then Louis Pasteur, all these people, they had their studies. He entered into Ecole in 1946. So it is in the post-war, Second War period, that we find that his that his writing has started, and so his or we can say his professional. I'm sorry, I haven't prepared any PPT. I thought that this topic uh, never calls for a PPT. That's why I thought a presentation would be okay. Is it in the audibility that's the problem, or any issues with the range? I think you can. It will be clearer, yes, in the long run. Okay. Or maybe if I off my camera, I don't know whether it will be more. It will be clearer. Can I do
Uh,
that?
Shamla, I think as it is okay because if you use a headphone, I think it's clear. It's a bit
It's
feeble,
clear.
but that's okay. But
It's clear.
I think I would suggest you don't switch off your camera because we'd be
Okay.
happy seeing your face if it's
Okay. Sure.
comfortable.
Okay. Sure. Okay. Thank you. So here, what I was saying that so Foucault in his he started his professional career, that is in the post World War. That itself is the period of postmodernism. But that at that time it was not as such regarded as a postmodernist period. But we later categorized it as postmodernist period. But then, when Foucault was a living author, at that time it was structuralism was at its height or at its zenith. So in that situation, but he never claimed himself as a structuralist. And but many of the concepts that what we can say that he has used in his writings, or many of his works thematically, has got its ground in structuralism. So we find that Foucault, as an iconoclast writer, he has found himself never at home at any of these isms. Yes, but still, I'm trying to what you can say, bring him into one of the isms, that is postmodernism. Yes, uh, so. Uh, 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 so what I would like to begin with. So when we speak about postmodernism, there is the context is very important. Yes, as it is what you can say, which makes uh, postmodernism different from structuralism, or deviates itself from structuralism. So let's look at the context in which Foucault started writing. Yes, so he belonged to the middle class family of an affluent middle class family or professional family in one of French provinces, and so he was born in 1926, and so after the First World War, I would say, and so in 1946 he started his education in one of the prestigious institutions in Paris, and where I told you, I have already mentioned the other people who already studied there, like some of the celebrities, including Sartre. And then we find that as an intellectual of the period, like any other radical student of those times, he too joined in the Communist Party of ECOL, the unit in ECOL. And then, but he was not an enthusiastic, what you can say, activist. He never turned up in the meetings like that. And at the slightest provocation, he just left the party in 1953. And what was that provocation that provoked him to leave the party? And it was when a group of Jewish doctors were they were charged for treason at in the USSR. For that, that was his disagreement with the party, and he left the party. And there was a reason for him to join the party too, and the reason was that he had because of the events that led to China war. Yes, and so, but we find that it was quite normal for Foucault never to be included in any particular organizations, because we find that he had his works, his concepts had already shattered the what you can say, the existing value systems, or which were the basis of human existence. So it's quite natural for him to leave the such a organized party like Communist Party. Then we find that as a young intellectual in the 50s, he could not accept himself into the, what you can say, into the system of a state, and then he could not accept the political, what you can say, politically compromised state, and also he could not also be, what you can say, complacent to the, what you can say, the humanistic approach, out of reach, out of touch humanistic approach. So we find that it would be clear to you if I quote what Foucault has said in one of his works. That is, uh, the experience of war. The experience of war had shown us the urgent need of a society radically different from the one in which we were living. This society that had permitted Nazism, that had laid down in front of it. A large sector of French youth had had a reaction of disgust toward all that. So this is what he said about the period in which he lived. That is about the tendencies that the young intellectuals, including him, could not accept the tendency of the period, or the spirit of the age, or the compromising tendency of whether it is political or social. Yes, and so and this tendency was regarded as it was called at that time a new kind of structuralism, because structuralism, even today we regard structuralism as a movement which has no what you can say, which has not given importance to meaning, essence as such. So that is a tendency or a standpoint that is devoid of any commitment, would be regarded as structuralist tendency. So when Foucault and people like Foucault, or the young intellectuals, the so-called young intellectuals of the period, when they moved away from such political commitments and such what do we say, committed to the state and such tendencies, when they moved away from such tendencies, they were what do you say, marked as structuralist. Yes. So why they were called structuralist? Especially the press, the media called them structuralist. So it is structuralism. We know that Marxist criticism is against that is new criticism. You know that why Russian formalists had to leave Russia in that period. How new criticism could flourish only in America, and it has its ground in Russian formalism. And so we find that we know that for a structuralism, new criticism was a springboard to flourish. So so there is the basic difference. The reason is that it was regarded as anti-humanist. Yes, giving more importance to text, form, and such material aspects. So when these people, that is people like Foucault, when they were dejected in the society in which they lived, which was suffering from the aftermath of war or wars. Yes, so a large section of French youth, including Foucault, they deviated from such a what you can say, such a loyalty towards the state and such political commitments. So why they were regarded as a structuralist? Because structuralism is understood as it rejected the idea that there is such a thing as what you can say, universal human nature. So the essentialist structuralism was against essentialism. Yes, so which we find that it was what we continued in postmodernism too. In postmodernism too, we find that it went against essentialistic tendencies, whether in literature, philosophy, art, architecture. So it's not postmodernism or for that case modernism. It was not something that they were not pertaining to a particular discipline, but it was multidisciplinary. Yes. So so when we so this aspect of structuralism, that it is anti-essentialist stance, it was continued in postmodernism. Yes. So when structuralism rejected that a thing has no essence, or there is no such a such a notion that there is universal human nature, is a myth. This is what structuralism want to establish. Yes, and then all of what you can say, and in history, That is, if you take the whole human history and existence, we find that structuralism claimed that there is no such thing as universal human nature. Yes, and we all know that is the basic tenets of structuralism as meaning is arbitrary. Yes, there is no relationship, there is no what you can say inherent relationship between thing and its meaning, the object and the word that denotes it. Yes, so it was something located in the convention. Yes, that is why an object is called that. It is not because of the essential what you can say quality within the object. Yes, so that is it was anti-essentialist. So here we find that it is so here. Uh, Structuralism was more interested in looking at the structures underlying knowledge, culture, society, yes, language. So structuralism started in linguistics, in language, but it spread to other disciplines, and it was called modernism in philosophy. In literature too, we find that modernism. There was, in fact, we have a genre itself that is called modernist literature. Yes. So the interest of this movement is in explicating the underlying knowledge structure, that is structures in the underlying knowledge, culture, society, and language. And we know that the structuralist who turned into later into post-structuralist Roland Barthes, who regarded that that is the author. Author is not the what you can say the genius who is all and who is the producer of the text, but rather he said author is dead. Yes, but as a structuralist, he regarded author is just a mediator of a language, or he uses the language, and this language is what it's already it has got the language is not something produced by the author, but the language has already it has its own meanings, structures before the author has even started writing. In that way, we find that the structuralist has what foregrounded the notion of the structure that is inherent in all the structure that makes meaning possible, but meaning is not inherent in any object. So this is something extended to the into the experience of human existence also. In human existence, that human being, if like any other object, and we find that in human beings also there is no such thing as called inherent essence. So that's why they have denied the notion that the existence of universal human nature. Yes. So and then we have other there is Louis Althusser, who had regarded history as what you can say. It is just simply a process. History is described as a process. So history as as an essential record of truth is what again it is denied in structuralism. So Althusser is of the view that history is what is just a process in which people acted out. Yes, there is nothing something inherent truth in history, and so they were not, and so the people are not the agency of creating history. They were just people who acted out. Yes, so they are not they are not in charge of history, or they are not the creator of history, or what you can say. They are at an individual level. They do not have that agency as that, but instead they are just the people who act out a process. It's just a process. Yes. So so in this background, we have to read Foucault. Yes, but Foucault, we find that with his what revolutionary thoughts, which he explicated in his interviews, lectures, as well as books that were published, we find that he falls under this category. That is, so in his thematically, we find that he has got some similarities with structuralism, structuralist thinkers, though he denied more than once, that is many a times in his interviews, that he couldn't be classed as a structuralist thinker. This to this general movement of thought, we can regard that Foucault fits in, because there is in terms of his the themes in his works. So when we look at his works, so the topic is post-structuralism, but we can't postmodernism. We can't speak postmodernism without speaking about the basic grounds which are there in structuralist notions. Yes, so these structuralist notions can be found in Foucault's writings, and so as a ground. Yes, and then we find that they were, but these grounds were not as a ground to stand in, but they were moving away to a newer thought or a newer movement, that is post modernism, which we find that his works uh, are evident examples. Yes. So when we look at his works, that is in 1950s, he started writing. That is in 1954, he wrote his work. That is his first work in psychology, but that was not very popular. But his first successful work, we can say, that was in that too has its relation to psychology. That is in 1961, Madness and Civilization. Yes. So in Madness and Civilization, it was published in, I hope all of you know that Foucault wrote in French. Yes. So what we read as English scholars or students, we read the second hand, if I say that the translation thing, that the theorist would be against that. But Foucault himself said about that, that is you people, that is you read the second hand translations of my work rather than the original text, and then you take my text as just as slogans. Yes. That is a Madness and Civilization. It was written in French, like all his other works. Later, but it was translated into English. That is in the 21st century, in the first decade of the 20th century. That is in 2006. Yes. So when he started writing in the 50s and 60s, that we can say the early stages of his writing career, where we find he was writing in the his writings were in the area of history of what you can say philosophy. That is in the area of history and philosophy. That is history and philosophy of science, then history of ideas. So we can say generally we can categorize his writings in the 50s and 60s as what we can say it is in the level of knowledge. Yes, that is that archaeology of science. Yes. So his works mostly it fall under the category that is in the level of the category of knowledge, 50s and 60s. When it comes to 70s, we find that there is the history of institutions. So first in the 50s and 60s, we have the history of science, history of ideas. Yes. Like Madness and Civilization, we have the history of science, or the psychiatry that is being analyzed, studied. In 70s, we have that is a history of that is institutions in the state. That history of institutions like the state, yes, the prison, like that. The institutions were which this what you can say, the power is executed. Yes, that is 1970s history of institutions. But when it comes to 1980s, then we have the here we have it is the ethics that he gives more importance to in the works in the 1980s. That is just before his death, a month before his death in 1984. He died of AIDS, and he a month before his death, he published the last two volumes of History of Sexuality. Yes, volume 3 and 4. Yes, and so that is in 1984. So 1980s, he's concentrated more on history of ethical systems. So please look at these three categories: history of knowledge, that is science, ideas, that is the knowledge; history of institutions; history of ethics. So what is that the word that repeatedly occurs? It's of course history. Yes. So we find that he's more a historian rather than a philosopher. We may come to such a conclusion when we look at these titles. Yes. The key word, of course, is history, and so we can say that he was more a historian. He was an equally historian as well as a philosopher. So that means he was interested in discerning the order of what you can say, the order in historical systems. That makes Foucault different from other thinkers, other philosophers. Yes. So what he was going into the root of things, order of things. That is one of his titles. So the root of the human existence, and thereby shattering the conventional notions or the notions in which humanity believed in as truth which cannot be denied. The basics were shattered by looking into, that is, he was exploring into the systems, the order of systems, or order of historical systems and knowledge. Yes. So he was not resorting to such abstract terms. We know that Foucault is a writer who is equally a thinker who is equally admired as well as um, condemned. And the reason for condemning Foucault, that is especially by the conservatives, don't think that modernism or conservative period of traditionalism is something chronological alone. Foucault himself has said that modernism is something, it's an attitude. Modernism. Modernism can be there even now. Rather than chronological, it is an attitude. Yes. So in that sense, we find that even today, Foucault has been condemned for being a homosexual. We know that homosexuality is not at all a crime. It is accepted by law. It is sanctioned by law. But even today, how many of us are able to accept homosexuals among us? We say that for that is we may deny this what I said, you may deny, but from the personal experience and the experience that you too might have, that is, if we when a transgender or a homosexual is there among us, there is a kind of what you can say, a lack of tolerance that we can find even today among the academicians when such seminars and academic what you can say, we conduct such deliberations, academic deliberations, but still we find there is that conservative element is there. So think about that aspect within uh, within us may be the reason to condemn Foucault regarding his homosexual. And there are some stories without evidence, of course, that he died. Of course, he died of AIDS, but there are such rumors spreading about Foucault during that is especially during his lifetime, that he was a carrier of HIV, and he deliberately tried to spread the disease. Such kind of intolerance we find regarding Foucault. So Foucault is a writer who is equally admired as well as condemned, and so he is and also he has been criticized for shattering the existence of truth, the essential truth. Yes, there are people still believe in essentialism. If you do not believe in essentialism, there is no what you can say. There is no existence of religion. So if we are religious, definitely we are essentialist. So when that essentialist notions are being shattered, definitely there will be a discomfort among us. It's quite natural. So Foucault, he was not ready to accept such vagueness. That is such a vagueness in organizing categories, like what you can say, like virtues, like what you can say. He is not ready to organize things, organize history, or organize knowledge on the basis of such abstract terms like genius. Then what you can say, then rationality, cause, effect. These are two abstract terms. Without there is a cause, effect, then what you can say, progress, genius. So he's not ready to what to categorize history or to order things in such vague terms. Instead, he wanted to come into such concrete terms in order to explain history or the history of human existence. Yes. So let's have a look at his works, and then just a survey of his works, and then understand how he denied the basic concepts of or the essentialist concept of truth and of human existence. Let's so thereby we will evolve into the notion of postmodernism in what in Foucault's theories, concepts. So let's look at his first successful work, Madness and Civilization, published in 1961. Though its translation came in 2006, English translation. That is Madness and Civilization has been widely what you can discussed work. So, what is the importance of madness, such a work, Madness and Civilization? That is, he traces again history. Yes, history of how madness has been dealt within the what you can say Western world. Of course, we find that Foucault's uh, that is arena of discussion is always the Western history, Western world. Especially, he thinks he bases his that is his works into the period of 17 that is just after 9th, 17th, 18th centuries. Yes, and so it is only but in history of sexuality we find that he moves back a little further to the Greek Roman period civilizations in order to describe the attitude of sex, attitude towards sexuality during the Roman Greek civilization. Yes, and how it was reproduced in the texts. Yes, so in Madness and Civilization, we find that he deals with the Western world, that is from the yes. So in Madness and Civilization, he has moved back, not just 17, from the 13th century. Yes, he starts his discussion, or he explores the history of Western world, how madness has been viewed, has been dealt with in Western world from the 13th century to the beginning of the 19th century. Yes, it has got a broad sweep of disciplines. That is how madness is dealt in what in art, literature, science, medicine, economics. In economics, in various disciplines, how madness had been dealt in the Western world. Yes, and so here we find that he has taken. Usually, we find that in the mainstream society, madness is regarded as a, of course, it is a disease. It is regarded as a disease. So, and then they are alienated. They are, in a way, they are controlled with such institutions like asylums and such. But we find what is Foucault's stance regarding madness. He takes a sympathetic view of the plight of those who are mad. Yes, his view is that of a sympathy, and he never regards them as something to be what of a madness is not regarded as a violence, but for him it is a kind of a sympathetic attitude that he had for those people who are mad, and he argued that the modern scientific what you can say definition of madness as mental illness, it was a necessity for the progress of human history. For the progress, it was a convenience for human history to regard madness as a mental illness. It was not, but it was a kind of a necessity on the part of for the progress of human history to regard madness as mental illness. But Foucault has got a different view of madness, and he had a sympathetic view of the for the plight of those who were deviated, who are alienated, who are forced to what, to have an secluded life because of and relegated them as madness, who are deviated personalities. And then we find that look at so here we find that what Foucault stands regarding madness. Madness is usually, I think, before reading Foucault, I too never thought anything different from the existing status quo regarding madness. Madness is a disease that we should keep ourselves away from such people. This is the notion that we have. Madness is a kind of what you can say othering. Yes, we regard, that is we, when I say we itself, we are other, we are what we do is we are categorizing. Yes, there is we as the normal people, and those people who have got some deviation of a deviation of any sort, whether it is madness, whether it is sexual orientation or whatever. It is our tendency is to keep aloof from them. That is, so that and when before Foucault, that madness is not such a topic that is even discussed as part of a normal or as a philosophical topic or a normal topic of to discuss, but madness was discussed as a therapeutic theme, or what you can say in the therapeutic context, in the context of psychiatry. Yes, it was. But when madness is thought about from the vantage point, from the layman's vantage point, it is something different. Yes, so the marginalized is brought into the forefront with this text, Madness and Civilization. So it is then we have a new with a newer eyes we look into the concept, the concept of madness. Yes, and how madness has been relegated in order to for the easy progress of civilization. Yes, so this is so I'm moving further from Madness and Civilization to the next work, that is 1960, published in 1966, that is The Order of Things. The Order of Things, we find that it is in fact it is all after the publication of Order of Things, Madness and Civilization got much impetus among the reading public, because when Order of Things was a bestseller in his time, and it is Order of Things, with that publication it influenced the sale of Madness and Civilization. Because then 60s, we should understand 1966 means 60s, usually we regard the 60s as a period of postmodernism, development of postmodernism, theater of absurd. And so by 1960s we find there is a growing interest in the marginal groups and marginal groups and experiences. So in that sense, in the 60 when Order of Things was published in 1966, there was a newer interest developed in Madness and Civilization, where we find that there was it also the reading of Madness and Civilization led to what you can say such a resentment to, there was criticism to, resentment on the part of traditional psychiatrists. Yes, why they resented? Because they found that the very basis of psychiatry, modern psychiatry, has been dismantled by this book, Madness and Civilization. So the psychiatrists, they organized an entire conference in 1969 in order to denounce this particular text, Madness and Civilization. That is in 1969, they formed a conference for the sole purpose to denounce this text, Madness and Civilization. So, in the Order of Things, Foucault maintained that there is an order, there is a system, there is a basis for forms and behavior. Yes, so that is which is this what we derogate as madness and mental illness. It is not, instead of regarding it as illness, Foucault maintained that there is a concrete biological basis for forms of behavior. It is a different form of behavior. Yes. What is the situation of homosexuality? What we regarded up to recent time, how we regarded homosexuality? It's a disease. Yes. There were attempts to cure homosexuals of their disease. What about transgenders? You might have heard, you might have read about the narratives from transgenders what they underwent, that is painful surgeries and such things, in order to that is and what you can say, that hormone treatments which were very painful for them, in order to be normalized. Yeah, you might have, most of you might have read the Ministry of Utmost Happiness by uh, Arundhati Roy, where we find how the experience of Anju, who that is in his or her, what we say, initial, later she it is her orientation is towards she, and so she explains that is how in her early life, in order to establish or fit into the category of boy, how she had to undergo painful hormone treatments. Yes, so this is something that is it is the deviances are often regarded as what, illness. So madness too is regarded as mental illness, but according to Foucault, it is a kind of there is some concrete biological basis, for forms of behavior which we always relegate as madness or mental illness. This is something uh, far from acceptability on the part of the psychiatrist. So they wanted to denounce this text. So they organized a conference in 1969 to denounce this text. So so we find that like this. So like such criticism like this, there are a lot of misconceptions regarding Foucault's work. That is, Foucault is denigrated, always saying that he has ignored concrete reality. Yes, and because he always when he explains in terms of discourse, he had what you can say, what he had. What ignored the concept of truth. So truth has been replaced by discourse. Yes, and by ignoring truth, what he has done, or by dismissing truth, or truth in the sense universal truth, he has ignored concrete reality. This is one of the criticisms against Foucault. Yes, but on the contrary, what we understand when we go into the text of Foucault's text, what we find that he holds that there is a physical reality. Yes, there is an what you can say. There is an so there is an what you can say. Uh, Physical reality, existing physical reality is there, but so he's not against concrete reality, but he wanted to explain reality more concretely, but he was mistaken for that when he speaks about discourse, when he speaks about epistemes instead of truths, essential or essential, what you can say, essence and such things. When he speak about discourse, epistemes, and in terms, what he was trying to do, instead of moving away from concrete reality, he was trying to explain reality in more concrete terms. That's why he said that there is, what you can say, there is a physical reality is there. Yes, an intractable physical reality. But the problem is not, he has no quarrels with the existence of the reality, but his quarrels is with what? The way we describe. Yes, in fact, we find that structuralist element in his thought. We find the structuralists are more interested in the how of things, yes, rather than the what of things, how of things. So, like that, Foucault too, he could not accept the way we describe this this interact, or the way we describe, the way we interact with this reality. And so he focused on our methods, or the existing methods in history or in any of the disciplines, is something variable, and by no means it is and it is no in no means it is fixed. Yes, so that fixity of truth, there is something questioned by Foucault, by saying that it is not questioning reality. Reality is there, but the way we describe reality is something is variable. It is according to the historical situations, the period, the conventions, the authorities. There are various factors which are variables, and these variables, according to these variables, we try to describe things. We try to describe reality. So the ways and methods that we follow are not what fixed. Yes. So here we find that the only way that is that is there is a so he's trying to explain the conceptual tools by which we try to explain things. He was trying to what you can say. He was trying to explore. He was exploring the tools and methods that we use to describe things. We used to describe knowledge. We used to describe that various disciplines were using different tools and methods to describe this reality. Yes, and so these tools and methods are not something fixed for all, but they for all time. But they were variables because they were these tools and methods were used according to the historical period and culture. It is according to the culture and historical periods. It is based on that we had different tools and methods to explain reality. Yes. So in that sense, we can say that Foucault was trying. He was more concrete in explaining reality than the so-called what you can say the traditionalist or the conventionalist. So Foucault argues that the way we link words, so that is the structuralist concept. The way we link words and things is by no means obvious. Yes, there is a it's very obvious. I would say it's very obvious that there is simply no way of what you can say. There is the link that we make between words and things to be absolutely true. Is always already structuralism has explicated this point of view. So Foucault uses the same concept. That is, we know that regarding the words, structuralists spoke in the context of language, in the context of linguistics, that the words and their meanings, the words and the objects that they denote, are not the relationship between them is not absolutely true. Yes, and things and words do not have a absolute the relationship between them is not absolute, it's not inherent, but it is arbitrary. We have already came to that conclusion. You can replace this thing with a human. We can replace this thing, this object with human culture. So the way we explain human culture is not something absolute. Yes. So this lack of certainty, yes, this lack of certainty is a matter of despair for many, especially people who believe in a concrete reality, in a concrete belief system, whether it is religion, whether it is what you can say, any ideology for that sense. So those who believe in such a certainty, so this lack of certainty creates a kind of despair. But for that was what happened in the modernist period. Modernism, with the notions of structuralism, when they found that the basis of human nature, the basis of human nature, the basis of human existence has been eroded, then the modernist thinkers, modernist writers, we have T.S. Eliot, W.B. Yeats, they had despair. So we find that their writings, we have Wasteland, W.B. Yeats, Second Coming, things cannot hold, center cannot hold, things fall apart. Yes. So there was a kind of despair when there was this lack of certainty. But Foucault was not never had this despair. Because, in fact, he was very optimist in this in this in this regard, because lack of certainty gives there is a ray of hope, according to Foucault. Because this instead of being to fall into instead of falling into despair, there is all reason for us to be very optimistic. Why? Because the ideas and practices which we follow, which are oppressive for many people, and the unjust measures that many people suffer as part of the tools and methods that we follow to explain reality, to describe reality, are not permanent, are not fixed. This is a ray of hope for many people who suffer because of the practices, the cultural practices, or the ideas, or the so-called truths that we believe in today. So there is a hope, there is a ray of hope for them that things can change. This is not permanent. These practices are not permanent. These are just what the reflections of the period, the culture in which we live. So the limit. So this is something, a ray of hope for the people who are in the margin, who suffer because of the what you can say, the system that is followed in the mainstream society. For the people in the mainstream society, the people in the authority, for them it's a matter of despair, because what they believe in, their comfort zone, is being attacked. Yes, so that lack of certainty was a ray of hope for many people when it was a despair for some others. Here I come to the notion of postmodernism, because postmodernism is nothing but what? Bringing things from the margin to the center. Yes, or that is moving away from the center. So when Foucault used the methods or the theme or the grounds of structuralism, he was attacking the same the modernist elitism which developed based on structuralism. Using the same method, he was attacking that elitism by looking into the concreteness of things, the order of things. Yes, and thereby revealing that these orders are not these orders are not something fixed, permanent, but instead they are they too are in a flux. It is the authority, the people in authority, or the structures that are in power that describes some methods and tools to to confront reality, which is claimed by these same people in authority of that particular period as absolute truth. Yes, you can very well associate these things to postmodern theories that flourished as part of in the postmodernist period. You know, we have feminism. Marxism is debatable. It developed in the structuralist period, but it has its what you can say, when it with its focus on working class, the marginalized, it has its postmodern tendencies. Yes, so all theories that support the marginalized people, the people who are away from the mainstream, who are denied of all rights, they, what we can say, all those theories that support these people, they are what you can say, are have been developed of these concepts. That is uh, uh, that is truth is not something fixed, it's not permanent. The order of things, the things are ordered not permanently, it is something in a flux, it is varied according to the culture conventions of the period. So this can be changed. That's why we know post that is we have feminism, post-colonialism, yes, a new historicism, then all those, then theories on transgender, then all those things, we find that this is the concept behind that. Yes. So postmodernism and post theories, post humanism, or what postmodernism, or whatever, we have the basis in this concept. What Foucault has tried to explain in his books, in his works, where he was, but he was mistaken as moving away from reality, whereas he was moving into reality, with the reality which is inclusive of all, not only the people in power, but the powerless too. Yes. So here we find that this notion that truth is not fixed, there is nothing that is called absolute truth in human nature. So this is against racist. This is against what you can say, fascist. Yes. And so here we find this, but this is favorable for a group of people or the population, the majority of population or the larger sections of population, who need not be condemned to be to a lifetime of misery. Like we have the Dalits in India, the blacks in America, Africa, all those the post-colonial people. Yes, so we have so this lack of certainty that Foucault has revealed is not something for people like us to be in despair. It is for people who have grounds, whose grounds are secure enough to safeguard their rights. They can be in despair. Yes, but the whole majority of population who are condemned to a lifetime of misery in the name of some spurious truth, we can say it's truth which are not absolutely true. Absolutely true. For example, in our situation, in Indian context, we have the Dalits, where Dalits are condemned to a lifetime suffering because of the casteist rules and values, yes, which were regarded as absolute truth. In the case of the colonial India, what the colonized people had a similar situation where they tried to imbibe the colonial values as propagated by the colonial power. Yes, so these are spurious truth. Yes, whether this is not something that comes into culture, whether this be scientific, yes, whether it is religious or political. So this is this is not something pertaining to a particular discipline. It is in it can be, because any discipline is in a way of trying to describe reality. It's a tool to describe reality. So these tools or these disciplines have based their studies on some spurious truth, which need not be always true. Yes. So it is. So Foucault himself has said, it is one of my targets to show people that a lot of things that are part of their landscape. Foucault has thought in terms of space, though he's much interested in the history of things. He thought in terms of space. Another what you can say influence of structuralism, that is thinking in space, that is horizontally rather than vertical. So here he says, I continue with my quote. It is one of my targets to show people that a lot of things that are part of their landscape, that people think are universal, are the result of some very precise historical changes. All my analysis are against the idea of universal necessities in human existence. So in human existence, there is nothing called human, there is nothing called universal necessities. There are only conveniences. Yes. So this is what Foucault tried to do in all of his works. So Foucault makes it clear that he is not engaged in skeptical or relativist refusal. So his interest is not to destroy everything that is acceptable. No. But he is interested in examining the historically and culturally specific rules, yes, which regulate how people are able to gain access to food. That is the base. He is, as I already said, he is in quarrel with the ways in which we approach truth, and the half truths that are play in the guise of absolute truth. Yes. So what he wanted is that how truth is being distributed throughout the social body, the society. He is against that. He wanted to explore historically and culturally how truth has been distributed. Yes. And so, and here we find that, and who is the authority to speak truth? So he has his quarrels with the institutions which are given the authority to speak truth. He is against the, he has quarrels with the, who is authorized to speak the truth. Who is authorized to speak truth? Priests, scientists, experts, journalists, therapists of all kinds, people who have power. Yes, so not the people maybe that is who are relegated as the deviants, that is maybe who are regarded as mad, who are regarded as maybe the feminist, or maybe the leftist, or from the rightist point of view, not from the point of view of China or other communist countries, but from the American Western point of view, we find that leftist is also what, a marginalized one. Then feminist, yes. So, but who are authorized homosexuals? They are not authorized to speak the truth. Transgenders, you can say, but who is authorized to speak the truth? Priests, scientists, experts, journalists, therapists of all kinds. So he is against that. So he is exploring historically and culturally what the specific rules which regulate which what you can say, which push a group of people from gaining access to the truth. The truth is accessible to some people, yes, and like some institutions, then like the state is an institution where there is absolute truth, and then some people, which I have already mentioned. So here he also analyze that is let's take the case of the methods that are regarded as valid, yes, there is which is recognized as true. For example, scientific research. Yes, with the new education policy, we know that how what even in scientific research there are state intervention. Yes, how what are topics that we should do research on. Yes, so such kind of, so we find that when we just have, when we analyze, we just have a look around us, we'll understand how truth is distributed, who has got access to truth. Yes, so scientific research, historical research, yes, then all these, then religious introspection, all these are something what they have the power to organize truth, yes, but not for all. So here there is and then there are some institutions who are given the authority for propagating this truth. Which are those institutions? Schools, then we have what, schools, then churches, of course from the Western point of view, then political parties, colleges, experts, academics, yes, journalists, and the media. All these people, all these are the institutions who can propagate this truth. Yes, so quite naturally we will move to the next important concern in Foucault's writing, that is power. Yes, so when truth so he is examining historically and culturally why truth is accessible to certain group of people, certain people are given authority, certain institutions are authorized. Yes, so that means what determines this authority? Of course it is power. Yes, so power, so Foucault defines power. So what is power? It is the ability of one structure or one structure of actions to modify another structure of action. So power is something that he wanted to explain power as a structure, as a structure of actions which has the capacity to modify another structure of actions. But power is not something inherent in it's not something possessed by any particular group. Unless it is exercised, it will not exist. So power is to be exercised, it should be executed. So the production of truth is linked with power. Those who wield power, they are the people who produces truth. So this is something, this relationship with power and truth. This was not something acceptable when Foucault wrote about this. Yes, because even there may be many people, maybe people who have joined in this meet, you too have this, maybe you too will not be accept that power and truth is such an interlinking of power and truth. When we read Keats' uh, 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 truth is beauty, beauty is truth. It is in the only in the aesthetic level we can accept that. Yes, but when truth is accept, that is in relation to truth and beauty. But what about the case of truth and power? Yes, because truth is something, especially for religious people who believe in religion, an institution which has got the authority to produce truth. It's very difficult to accept that the interlinking of power and truth. Yes. So, from the time period, from the what you can say, from the time of what you can say Plato, it is regarded that power and truth are two opposites. Yes, but Foucault has revealed how truth is determined by power, the people in power, authority. Yes. So his notion of power. Then he published in 1963 the birth of the clinic, the birth of the clinic in 1963, where we find that he describes the modern clinical medicine in France. That is, he says that modern clinical medicine in France, it developed from in the period from that is 1769 to 1824. Yes, so uh, this development of clinical medicine in France is in fact related to the formation of medicine as a source of complex political, economic, and social factors. Yes. So, how medicine is related to the or the development of clinical medicine, how it is related to the related to the politics, political, social, and economic factors of that period is something explained by Foucault in The Birth of the Clinic, and that means knowledge and science is something closely linked. Yes, knowledge, which can stands for truth. Yes, so knowledge and science still remain what it is something in a very holy marriage, what we can say, and it is and in relation to our physical existence, in our relation to the physical, in our physical existence in our world, this relationship between knowledge and what you can say science, it is very close. Yes, that is how knowledge has been defined, and what kind of knowledge should be produced, and what kind of knowledge should be propagated in the society is decided by science, and science, which is an institution of the power or the power authority in power. And we find that in 1966 that he published The Order of Things, where we find that Order of Things, when it was published, it was regarded as a new structuralist work. Yes, and here we find that here in Order of Things too, he dealt with different disciplines like economics, biology, linguistics, in all how they try to explain truth, explain reality using methods which are very much what related to the period, to the culture, the history of the time. Yes, and it is in 1975 that he published the Discipline and Punish. Yes, Discipline and Punish, and here it is in this particular work we find that there is a reason why he published this work, Discipline and Punish. And here we find that it is Foucault in the 1970s, when he found that a group of students were arrested because of, and what was the reason? In America, they were arrested because, and they were regarded as terrorists. What was the reason? Because just for distributing some tracts. Yes, we know such a situation was there in Kerala too. That is for distributing some tracts. There were there was they were regarded as anti-nationals. Yes, so this happened in 1970s, where Foucault went against that. Yes, So he actively protested against that, and then then similar movements were happening in France, and so in France he joined hands with the activities there. And in the wake of his activism in the 1970s, in 1975 he published this work, Discipline and Punish, where he was trying to relate the conditions of prisons, another marginalized area. And Foucault has described in this another work of other spaces, that he described the concept of heterotopia, where he discussed prison is one of such heterotopia. Yes, of other space. Yes, so here all the so again we find his postmodern tendency, where he has his whole attention is given to prisons, the condition of prison in this work, Discipline and Punish, in 1975. So here he published again a history of the adaptation of the prison from he writes this with reference to France. Yes, from 1757 to 1838. In France, adaptation of prison was adapted as a universal method of criminal punishment. For criminal punishment, prison was regarded as it was the method adopted. Yes, in France, in the 18th century, 18th and 19th century, from 1757 to 1838. So he takes this example of prison. So prison is a vantage point in order to explain. Foucault takes prison as a vantage point to explain that is the emergence of what he describes as disciplinary society. Yes. So in this text, he describes prison is a vantage point for Foucault to explain the development of, or the that is development of a or the emergence of a disciplinary society. Disciplinary society is the term that he used. Yes, which involves a training of large population. So it is not just prison where we find this confinement is there. In fact, the whole state is what you can say is comprised of a disciplinary society where the large population, that is for the large population, the whole population undergo training of different types. That is how the individuals are given training to act in a manageable way. So the state, it is a state apparatus who has created such institutions where the population is trained to be a responsible citizens, or in other words, obeying, that is obedient group. Yes, so not just prison, we have other institutions like schools are, if you ask students, schools are prisons, but now they won't say, because of this pandemic situation, they feel that schools maybe haven't, but before that, schools is also an institution that teaches individuals, citizens in their very tender age, how to behave, how to be obedient citizens. Yes, so schools, prisons, military barracks, in many countries there is compulsory military training that they have to undergo. Yes, so military barracks, then we have factories for the laborers. Yes, factories, hospitals for the deviant people, hospitals, all acted as what? This they all joined hands in the kind of training through the use of what you can say, through the use of architecture. I hope you are familiar with the concept of the panopticon. Yes, that is the concept of panopticon. That is where it is the architecture that creates the surveillance. Yes, so in the form of they make use of architecture. Then what you can say, timetabling. Yes, schools we have the schedules, and then we have the then there is the regimentation in barracks, physical activities, gestures, even gestures. In military In army, there is the gestures that we use. In law, there is in courts. Yes, the gestures that are used in schools. How to behave in front of teachers. Yes, all those gestures. So we find that here such a complacency or obedient citizens are what you can say generated using these institutions. So here, what is assured with these trainings in these institutions? There is a system, and we find there is a system of surveillance is there, where the citizens are being watched. Yes, and then here we find that again we move to the category of ethics, where we have 1976 he published his first volume of the history of sexuality. And then here he argues that that is sexuality is something that is much discussed. Yes, a topic, but not in its right sense. Sexuality, it is said that in the 17th and that is especially the bourgeois period, that is in with the coming of the Industrial Revolution, there is a hypothesis called the repressive hypothesis. Yes, repressive hypothesis, that is sexuality was repressed in the Western world. There was no talk on sexuality. Sexuality was regarded something very personal, so that it should not be discussed. It is something private and personal, and so it should not be discussed. So repressing sexuality in the modern European thought. But Foucault is against this hypothesis, that repressive hypothesis. He says, instead of repressing sexuality, modern European thought has done nothing but talk about it endlessly. Sexuality has been talked about endlessly, especially from the 17th century onwards, after the Renaissance. How he explains that? It was how sexuality has been discussed in the modern thought prolifically through science, institutional categories to deal with it. Science institutional categories, like we have psychology on the one part. Yes, to describe homosexuality, they describe disobedience. Freud, psychoanalysis. Sexuality has been talked about endlessly. Yes, and so then demographic studies, population studies, that how population should be reduced. Then there were so sexuality is being talked with rationality, not in sensual terms. In rational terms, sexuality has been discussed and talked endlessly in modern European thought. Yes, so we find that there is so it is to deal with what so in demographic studies. Then we have in that is to control that is birth rates, about speaking about death and all those things. We find that sexuality has been talked out endlessly in modern European thought. He is on the contrary, he's not he's against the notion that there is repressive hypothesis or the repressive hypothesis in Western thought. Instead of that, he says that there was sexuality was talked prolifically in modern Western society. Yes, we find that in management of births, deaths, reproduction laws, then illness, then of the population. So the modern state has talked endlessly on sexuality. But why? But what is the difference? Here, Foucault says the difference between Eastern notion of discussion of sexuality and Western discussion of sexuality. In Western discussion of sexuality, it was the master speaking to the object or the subject of sexuality. But in the case of the master getting the what you can say, master treating the subject of sexuality as a disease. Yes, take the case of homosexuals. Yes, here sexuality was talked and it was regarded as a disease. But in the case of Eastern thought, according to Foucault, here it is sexuality is learned. Maybe he has in mind Kama Sutra and such text. Yes. So sexuality, it is a master who explains. So it is in a sensual terms. But when sexuality has been talked in terms of rationality, there comes that is in terms of demographic studies and such things. In scientific studies, it is a rational study of sexuality where there is no special, there is no pleasure. It is not for sensual pleasure that sexuality is being studied, but it is studied for a treating it as a disease. Yes, so we find that, and Foucault is of the opinion that sexuality has been studied in Western society in order to restrict it. That is, it is because if sexuality, if not, yes, if sexuality is not talked in that manner, then what will happen? There will not be control over the population. Then after industrial revolution, if sexuality has to be restricted. Then only there will be production in the factories. So there should be reproductive theories. Then even sexuality has been studied taught at the school level. Trans, that is that is that is without what you can say, the pleasure element. So thereby the talks of sexuality has tried to restrict sexuality and deviant sexuality. The only acceptable sexuality in the modern Western society was through the domestic sex, that is through marriage. So extramarital relationship, all these was spoken by whom? By the pastors. Then confession is was an important medium in order to speak sexuality, because the sin, the most the original sin committed by Adam and Eve. So from there onwards, that is it is sexuality is a sin which has to be confessed. So who are the speak so the speakers who are asked to talk on sexuality are the subjects, where the subjects are asked to talk on sexuality, where the masters are the listeners in order to control it. So we have the pastors, the religious people. Yes, the churches are the area or the platform where sexuality is talked as a sin, as confession. So we find that rather than moving away from sexuality, sexuality has been talked in order to restrict it and to deny the aesthetic, the happiness involved or the pleasures involved in sexuality. So history of sexuality, it has run into 4 volumes. Yes. So Foucault, what we find that so he published the latest editions, volumes of sexuality, history of sexuality um, that is in 4 volumes. The later volumes were published in that is a month before his death. Yes, in 1984. Yes. So so here, what Foucault tries to do is, throughout his works, he deals with the empirical material. So rather than dealing with vague knowledge or vagueness or abstractness, what he was trying to explain through his works were he was dealing with empirical material often ignored by others, and he arranges it in new, unexpected ways. So we find that if you take any of his works, we find that he is trying to look at concrete reality through empirical means, and then yes, and then he argues that yes, am I here in the meet? Am I audible? I find many people they are giving their
Yes, Shamla, you're here.
giving their
No,
thanks.
we
If
posted the feedback form a bit earlier, so
okay,
they're having queries regarding that.
is it a hint for me to conclude?
No, no, you
Okay,
can
but
take your time. We
okay,
have only your session today.
yes, I am on the verge of concluding. Yes.
Okay, thank
So
you.
he deals with empirical material. So he argues. So what Foucault is trying to do is he argues that this empirical material is already and interpretation. So nothing that is not something. Our methods and tools are not the permanent systems, but already an interpretation which has already been uh, selected, organized in particular ways. So this is the way that he tries to explain the method and tools that we have been using in order to maybe suppress, oppress a major section of the population, claiming that these methods and ways, tools were the absolute truths. So Foucault cautions the entire humanity to be very careful. That is, never accept too easily the status quo at either level. Maybe it is at the level of knowledge or social organization, because such kind of acceptance may be maybe leading to our belief in myth, injustice, and restrictions of reasonable freedom within the social body. So this is what Foucault here wants the people to be careful in believing the status quo. We are all born to a particular religion, and we continue to be in that religion, and the rest of our life is a pathetic justification for the truths that we believe that is part of that religion. So the status quo, when we believe in status quo, when we accept such status quo, be very careful. Otherwise, we may be led into myths, injustices, restrictions of reasonable freedom within the social body. Foucault has said, but a system of constraint becomes truly intolerable when the individuals who are affected by it do not have the means of modifying it. It is in the name of religion that casteism has developed in India. Dalits, we have Dalit literature, we have Dalit studies. All these, we find that it is based on a system. But so if you read from the light of Dalit reality, this is something very sensible. But Foucault has said that from the Western vantage point. But a system of constraint becomes truly intolerable when the individuals who are affected by it don't have the means of modifying it. Yes. So Foucault presents fundamentally optimist point of view. There is nothing to be to be panicky about Foucault, about postmodernism. It is something very hopeful because he gives a optimistic point of view. The present situation in any domain is not set, is not something permanent. It is instead the product of a whole collection of actions and decisions made by some people or the people in authority. Yes, who wanted such for their own selfish gains. So never be disappointed by the existing system. This is something very relevant from our from the situation, from our present Indian situation, political scenario. We can say that this is not the end. This is not something absolute. This is just what is it use Foucault's Foucauldian term. It is like here what we believe. The present system is a product of a whole collection of actions and decisions undertaken by many people in a long period of time, over a long period of time. So this means that things can be changed. It's very hopeful for people who suffer now, who are in the margins. So it is something for the from the postmodernist level. This is very optimistic. It is very hopeful because these things can be changed. Change is for people who are now, who never enjoy the comforts of the present situation. For them, Foucault is very meaningful. Yes. So such optimism seems to be in short supply. Especially now, we find that such optimism is in short supply. So, so there is. So Foucault, as a postmodernist thinker, is a must-readable author, must-read. We should read the author, must-read author. I would say, from the light of, from the vantage point of postmodernism. Yes. So I think I should conclude now.